It's Toby from La Bicicletta, and today I want to talk to you about Giro Cycling Shoes. Now, a bit of a backstory first. Eric Horton used to head up Specialized BG cycling shoe program, and he thought that while their shoes were really good for many reasons, their design principles were a little bit too rigid for his liking. So he wound up in Giro's hands, and they told him he can take whatever materials and whatever time necessary to make the shoe best to his liking. So, these shoes, their biggest selling points can be broken into three categories. The first being engineering, the second being the last, and the third being support. The big story with engineering of these shoes was that Giro teamed up with Easton Carbon Sports to design a carbon outsole specifically for this project. Now, Easton has a well-established and well-respected reputation for their design as well as manufacture of carbon. And what they gave this project was a carbon outsole with the highest stiffness to weight ratio on the market. One thing that strikes me about the soles is that the heel step as well as the toe step are actually not replaceable, so time will tell to see how well they hold up. With respect to the upper, it's made of Teijin 100 microfiber, which you find in high-end Nike and Puma soccer shoes. Now, what do we have to learn from soccer shoes? Well, soccer players tend to kick, run, jump, slide, pivot, go through mud. Basically, they're a lot harder on their gear than cyclists are. So what we have here is a upper that's actually overkill for a cyclist. It's lightweight, very supple, but strong and breathable. The last point with engineering is that if you look at the way the straps line up linearly, they're not in the same line, so you'll never actually get hot spots in the same spot of your foot. Giro uses a mid-volume last, which is between the Italian model on one hand, which is typically very thin, think seedy shoes, and on the other hand you have the American-Japanese model, which tends to have a big, wide open entry, and then you have to mold the shoe down to your foot. Think of the Shimano heat moldable shoes. Giro went through 16 last revisions before they came out with this onto market, and the last comes in half-size gradings throughout the entire sizing spectrum. The last big speaking point about these shoes is the support. Now, Eric Horton, when he was with Specialized, thought that the footbeds did not automatically need a 1-degree canting. Rather, it would be much more important to address arch support issues. So if you think about it, it makes a lot of sense. Most people have a natural arch to a certain extent, and if this is your foot inside the shoe, what's happening is when you apply force to the pedal on the downstroke, first the foot is pushing down to fill the volume of the shoe, and potentially your toes move forward, creating fictional hot spots. And then, only once the foot is completely collapsed, you start applying pressure onto the pedals. So power transference becomes a big issue. So what they've done is with every shoe model, you get a footbed, as well as 3 arch supports, high, medium, and low. Moving through the range of shoes on offer here, at the top of the line we have the ProLite SLX, and the idea was Giro wanted to make the lightest cycling shoe on the market. So notably, they didn't actually put a buckle at the very top. They found that a strap would weigh less and keep you equally as secure. So the carbon outsole uses Easton EC90 SLX carbon, which is the lightest that they make, yet strongest. Uses the Teijin 100 microfiber upper. The straps are all offset from each other to avoid hot spots. They actually use titanium D-ring loops as well as titanium screw threads for your cleats, and it weighs 205 grams. Next down the line we have the Giro Factor, which uses Easton's EC90 carbon outsole, has the same offset straps, aluminum D-rings, and steel screw threads, but this time they actually use an Italian ratcheting buckle, which moves one détente at a time, so it's very good for making micro adjustments while on the bike. As well, there's actually two positions which you can put the buckle on the shoe. This shoe weighs 255 grams, and overall the differences between the Factor and the SLX are pretty minor. On the good, better, best spectrum, the Giro Trans represents the good. It uses the Easton EC70 carbon outsole, so it's a little bit heavier, a little bit less stiff. It uses the same offset straps, the same Italian ratcheting buckle with two positions, but notably, it uses the Aegis antimicrobial compound on its insole, which will eventually wear off over time, as opposed to, in the upper two models, there's the X-static antimicrobial threading. The shoes weighed a little bit more, but they have a sister model called the Trans HV, which uses a high volume last and would represent a double E wide shoe, but not necessarily any longer. Giro Cycling Shoes, over 1 year in the market, have already jumped to the number 3 cycling shoe manufacturer, so we invite you to check out what it's all about. Hi everyone, it's Toby from La Bicicletta, and today I want to talk to you about Giro Cycling Shoes. Now, a bit of a backstory first. Eric Horton used to head up Specialized BG cycling shoe program, and he thought that while their shoes were really good for many reasons, their design principles were a little bit too rigid for his liking. So he wound up in Giro's hands, and they told him he can take whatever materials and whatever time necessary to make the shoe best to his liking. So these shoes, their biggest selling points can be broken into 3 categories. The first being engineering,